Hey chess fans, it's Camus and another game from the Four Nations Chess League individual rapid play event from 2013. And as you probably know, we're following Michael Basman to see what he would do. And this is probably his fourth round game, but we're going to call it a 6 round game because the database that I got these games from seems to have no agreement as to the dates and rounds. So anyway, I may have gotten it wrong. It doesn't really matter. We'll call it round 6. Okay, so let's get right to it. Basman is white, and he's playing Marcus Harvey, whom I presume is a master. His rating is 2232. Perhaps some of you English players know more about Mr. Harvey. But, all right, so no points for guessing Basman's first move, g4. Well, of course, he also starts games with h3 and a3 as well these days. So perhaps you got some points for guessing g4. But it's certainly a popular choice with him. e5. Black plays sensibly. Actually, virtually any move against g4 is a sensible move. Bishop to g2, h5. And this is a pretty good move order, I think, against the Grob, because white has not played d3 here, and therefore he does not have the option to play the spike with g5, which he might want to do. And Basman has played the spike a la Claude Bloodgood on previous occasions, but he's also taken on g5 even when he could have played the spike. So not sure what his thought process is in making this decision, but here he doesn't have a decision. So he's going to lose a pawn unless he takes. So take he does. d5, and that's c4. This is a very thematic move in the Grob, softening up the light squares, particularly this diagonal. Black can take on c4, but white can recover it with a queen to a4 check, and he gets good pressure against the light squares. d4, he opens the diagonal for white's bishop. d3, now rook to h5. Now Basman plays knight to d2, and now this knight is not heading for e4 as you might expect. Of course, if it went to e4, f5 could dislodge it someday, but he's going to go to g3, which is actually a pretty good square. Knight to f6, knight to f1, c5, and knight to g3. Now the rook loses a little bit of time, but I guess that doesn't really matter much since it took the knight 3 moves to reach this position. Rook to h8, and a queen to a4 check. Another thematic move, and he elicits bishop to d7, and after queen to b3, he's got some serious pressure on the pawn on b7. Black plays knight to c6, which is an excellent move. He doesn't want to take bishop takes c6 because his bishop is his strongest piece, and he wouldn't want to exchange it for a piece that black has just developed. And also, this move knight to c6 is a familiar one to anyone who's played the Baltic defense, because it involves a little bit of a trap, because white cannot play queen takes b7, because after rook to b8, queen to a6, black plays knight to b4. He picks up the rook because of the knight fork on c2. So Basman, of course, knew this, and after knight to c6, he plays bishop to d2. Queen to c7 was played. Now, black has a reasonable position with good central control, a half-open h-file, and no real weaknesses. Whereas white has pressure on the light squares, this nice diagonal for the bishop on g2. But black's got everything under control. It's a roughly equal position here. a3 was played. Perhaps a knight to f3 was a little bit stronger. But anyway, he plays a3, bishop to e7, and now queen to c2. And now white is actually threatening to play b4 and getting some counterplay on the queen side. But black is alert. He plays a5, and that halts that plan. Knight to f3, knight to h5. This is a good move. Castles queenside, and now f5. He's trying to mobilize these kingside pawns. Now, white plays something of an error, I think. He plays e3 to break up the black central pawns, but perhaps better would have been knight takes h5, because this knight on h5 is going to cause problems when it reaches f4. So you should have probably played something like this. Knight takes h5, rook takes h5, h4, castles queenside, knight to g5, rook d to h8. And now the computer says there's a draw here. Knight to f7, rook to f8, knight g5, and so on. Somehow I doubt that either player would take a draw, especially in a quick play game here, even if it reached this position. But the position is equal, according to the computer. So this would have been better. We'll go back to the position after f5, after black has played f5. Basman plays e3, and black castles queenside. E takes d4, e takes d4, rook d to e1. Now this was his last chance to play knight takes h5, and now knight to f4. It's a stronger move than perhaps Basman realized. Well, maybe he realizes it now because, of course, this bishop is threatened on g2, and he really doesn't want to play the groveling move of bishop to f1. So he's more or less forced to exchange the dark squared bishop. Queen takes f4. Now the queen is in an imposing position. King to b1. That was check, of course. Now, I would say that black actually has an advantage in this position. It's a small advantage, but an advantage nonetheless. So bishop to d6, h4, rook d to e8, and white exchanges. Black takes back. Now, I think exchanges really favor black in this position because he's got a better pawn structure for the endgame. White's got these two isolated pawns on the king side, and if all the pieces come off, that could be a problem for him. So now white plays another slight error here. He plays queen to b3. I guess he's trying to infiltrate with his queen, but perhaps better was knight to e2, because well, you'll see why. After queen to b3, white plays the strong move, queen to g4, and he's threatening some unpleasantness with bishop takes g3, f takes g3, queen takes g3, and white is in danger of losing a piece in that position. And will have to tie himself out in knots. So he plays the best move here, white that is. He plays knight to g5, and now bishop takes g3, f takes g3, queen takes g3. Now black has won a pawn. Bishop to d5, rook to e1 check, forcing more exchanges. Rook takes e1, queen takes e1, king to a2, queen takes h4. Now he's won 2 pawns, and his knight is under threat. So actually, black is winning. He's clearly winning here. He's got 2 passers on the king side here. Knight to f7. Basman, of course, does not back down from a fight, and he's no stranger to being in a lousy position, so he's more or less at home. Queen to f6, queen to c2, and now black creates an error here. He plays a very natural move, knight to e7, but he allows white to get back into the game. He should have played bishop to e8, attacking that knight. Knight to h8 is his only square, really. G5, queen to h2, as the knight was threatened again. G4, bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, queen to h7, f4, and this is pretty hopeless for white. He doesn't have any real counterplay to speak of. So after queen to c2, bishop to e8 was what black should have played, but both players were likely short of time at this point, and he played, as I said, knight to e7, trying to take off that bishop on d5. But he overlooks the strength of White's reply. Basman finds the only move to save the game. In shorter time, queen to h2. And now he should not play knight to d5, but he does. And knight to d6, king to d8, knight to b7 check, king to e7, c takes d5, and unfortunately black won on time here, or white lost on time, however you like to look at it. And the position is about equal. White has his choice of pawns to take off on c5 or a5. And the game is still a fight, but with relatively equal chances. I would probably prefer to play black in this position, but Rybka gives a very minimal advantage to black here. 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Pretty fast play, and you can certainly forgive both players for creating some errors. Our hero failed to save the day, but he put up a tense struggle, and it was an enjoyable game nonetheless. We have one more game in this tournament to look at, and then at some point we'll find some other tournament of his to follow. Hopefully one with a slower time control. Anyway, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this game, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.